There's been a lot of interest in recent years in researching gait retraining and the potential effects it can have on the load placed on tissues during running and also potentially in the management of injury. One of the questions that frequently comes up is, can gait retraining actually reduce running injury risk? And actually now we have a first study that suggests that it might be able to. Chanatel's research, just published in the American Journal of Sports Medicine, suggests that gait retraining may be able to reduce injury risk. They studied a group of 320 novice runners who were randomly assigned to either a gait retraining or control group. And the gait retraining consisted of 8 sessions over 2 weeks with visual biofeedback and using the cue "run softer." So as you can see in the image in the top right hand corner here, the runners ran on an instrumented treadmill and they had feedback in front of them showing their impact loading so that they were able to reduce some of that impact load by using that simple cue of running softer. Now, this potentially is useful, but not necessarily something we'd all have available to us in clinic. So it'd be interesting to see if simply using the cue "run softer" or "run quietly" on its own might be effective without the need for the snazzy equipment. Now, they looked at injury rates over a 12-month period and reported a 62% lower injury risk in the gait retraining group compared to the control group. And they also reported an 18 to 20% reduction in impact loading after this gait retraining period, which they believe might be responsible for this reduction in injury risk. Now, there is some debate over the role of impact loading in the development of running injury. It has been connected with running injury. There is some evidence that it may be connected with patellofemoral pain, with tibial stress, bone stress injuries, and also plantar fasciopathy. Although some of the larger reviews like Van der Warp et al. Have questioned the connection between impact loading variables and injury. So it's still an area we're learning quite a lot about. The gait retraining group also had fewer instances of plantar fasciitis and patellofemoral pain, but they did actually report more Achilles and calf injuries in the gait retraining group. Now, this may be because the cue to "run softer" often results in runners switching to a more forefoot strike, which will potentially reduce the impact loading for some people, but does tend to increase the demands on the calf and Achilles. So an interesting study there for you to consider. What I think we need to see now is follow-up studies getting similar results in different groups of runners, not just novices, and also showing us the data in terms of the training that these runners are going for, because this particular paper doesn't tell us about the training volume or intensity of these runners. So we can't tell just from reading the paper alone whether they were matched in terms of their training variables, and that could be a significant limitation here if the gait retraining group, for example, was doing less running than the control group. So certainly food for thought, but more research required before we can make a definite conclusion from a study like this.